Let me tell you something most people never admit out loud. There are people who walk through life like quiet shadows. People who show up for everyone but disappear when it's their turn to be seen. People who carry whole worlds on their backs but refuse to light a single candle for themselves. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've lived your entire life forgetting your own birthday, long before anyone else forgot it for you. It starts quietly, in the moments when you accomplish something small, something meaningful, and instead of celebrating, you shrink. You step back. You say, it's not a big deal. You even apologize for the space your joy might take up. So here's the real question. When did you learn that your victories didn't count? There's a certain ache that follows people who never celebrate themselves. You know this ache. It moves slowly, like a familiar echo in the background of your life. You work hard, you try, you push yourself through storms other people never see. And yet, the moment something finally goes right, you freeze. You tell yourself it wasn't real success. You tell yourself you were just lucky. You tell yourself you could have done better, should have done better. And that celebrating now would somehow jinx the fragile progress you've made. You live in the in-between space, not failing, but never allowing yourself to feel the warmth of winning. You see other people announce their milestones, their promotions, their healing, their growth. And instead of envy, you feel something stranger, a quiet disbelief that celebration is even allowed. For you, joy feels like a spotlight, and spotlights have always felt dangerous. So you step back. You stay small. You hide the certificate in a drawer. Delete the good news before you press post. Swallow the pride before it ever reaches your lips. But here's the truth most never acknowledge. Not celebrating yourself isn't humility. It's a learned survival strategy. A pattern shaped long before adulthood. Long before you had language for any of this. Back when your achievements were met with silence, or comparison, or conditions. This is the invisible weight of those who learned their joy wasn't welcome. This is how it happens. Psychologists have a name for this pattern, or rather, for the roots that create it. It often emerges from something called conditional worth, a phenomenon tied deeply to attachment theory. When you grow up in environments where affection, acknowledgement, or attention depend on your performance, or worse, where your achievements are minimized or ignored, your nervous system learns a dangerous equation. Accomplishment is equal to pressure. Visibility is equal to vulnerability. Celebration is equal to risk. And your brain begins to protect you in subtle, incredibly intelligent ways. To understand this, you have to look at the way the developing brain interprets emotional cues. Neuroscience shows that in childhood, your brain is shaped, structurally, chemically, deeply, by the responses you receive from the people you depend on. A study in 2015 found that positive reinforcement in early life strengthens neural pathways associated with reward, motivation, and self-esteem. But when acknowledgement is absent, unpredictable, or tied to perfection, your brain rewires itself to anticipate disappointment instead of joy. So you learn to dim yourself, to erase your victories before anyone else can, to celebrate internally, silently, privately, if at all. This isn't because you're ungrateful. It isn't because you lack confidence or ambition. It's because your mind learned early and accurately that standing out could lead to criticism, comparison, or emotional neglect. Psychologists call one branch of this experience parentification, when a child becomes the emotional caretaker, the responsible one, the grown-up long before they should. And children who become caretakers often learn that their own needs, achievements, or joys are secondary, maybe even burdensome. Another layer comes from self-effacement, a pattern found in people who were raised to believe that modesty meant invisibility, that honoring yourself was arrogance, that pride was a sin, that your accomplishments mattered less than keeping the peace. But beneath all these theories, beneath all the vocabulary, lies something profoundly simple. You learn to hide your light because no one taught you how to hold it. And so adulthood becomes a strange landscape. You achieve, you grow, you do impossible things on ordinary days. But emotionally, you're still that child, checking the room, wondering if joy is allowed, if pride is safe, if your happiness has permission to exist. You'll minimize, you'll deflect, you'll make jokes instead of accepting compliments. You'll dismiss the very things that should be celebrated. And the cruel irony, people see you as humble, grounded, selfless, never realizing that humility was built on survival, not confidence. Here's something else psychology tells us. What protects you in childhood often imprisons you as an adult. Your ability to stay small kept you out of danger. Your ability to expect nothing protected your heart from disappointment. Your ability to blend in kept you safe. But now, it keeps you from yourself. Because every time you refuse to celebrate, you reinforce an old, outdated belief. I don't matter enough. I don't deserve this. My joy is too loud. But your brain can learn something new. Your nervous system can rewrite stories it didn't choose. Neuroscience shows that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, lasts well into adulthood, which means your story is still being written. And the part where you learn how to celebrate yourself might be the part you've been waiting for. You might not notice how deeply this pattern has woven itself into your life until you start paying attention. Because people who never celebrate themselves don't just skip parties or ignore milestones. The symptoms show up everywhere, quietly, invisibly, consistently. And maybe you'll recognize yourself in more of these than you expect. You downplay your achievements before anyone else can. You say things like, "It was nothing. I just got lucky. It wasn't as good as it could have been." You cushion your accomplishments with disclaimers, like you're trying to protect yourself from imagined disappointment, as if celebrating too soon might expose you. That's because somewhere inside you, joy still feels like a setup, a test you're destined to fail. Compliments make you uncomfortable. Someone tells you they're proud of you, and your instinct is to deflect, to change the subject, to shrink. Compliments feel foreign, like wearing clothes that don't belong to you yet. A part of you still believes praise should only go to other people, the louder ones, the confident ones, the ones who were taught to take up space. You learn to survive by staying quiet. You sabotage moments of success. You might finish something important and immediately move on to the next thing. No pause, no breath, no recognition. Fits like you rerunning from your own progress, sprinting toward the next expectation so you never have to sit with the pressure of the present moment. Success doesn't feel like a victory, it feels like a debt. You celebrate others effortlessly, but never yourself. Isn't that strange? You know exactly how to hype someone else up. You know how to support them, uplift them, shower them with encouragement. But when it comes to you, silence. You become the emotional parent again, the giver, the source of validation for others, but never the recipient. This is how emotional roles from childhood repeat themselves. You equate self-recognition with arrogance. Some part of you was taught explicitly or silently that acknowledging your own progress is shameful, that if you celebrate yourself, you're bragging. If you're proud of yourself, you're full of yourself. If you speak your joy aloud, you're asking to be knocked down. So you shrink to avoid the imagined punishment. But humility isn't the absence of celebration. Humility is the presence of truth. And the truth is, you've earned more than you've ever allowed yourself to feel. Milestones feel meaningless because you never fully processed them. Graduations, promotions, breakthroughs, they slip through your fingers like water. You tell yourself they came too late, or they weren't big enough, or you should have reached them sooner. Your nervous system doesn't register accomplishment, it only registers relief. Your body doesn't feel, "I did it." It feels, "Thank God it's over." That's not failure. That's trauma logic. You fear being seen changing. Celebrating yourself draws attention. Attention invites opinions. Opinions feel dangerous, so you quiet your growth. You evolve silently. You heal in shadows. Because visibility still feels like a threat to your emotional safety. But here's the recognition moment. You're not avoiding celebration. You're avoiding exposure. Your system still believes that being seen is unsafe. You only feel comfortable celebrating privately, or not at all. Maybe you save small victories in a notes app you never show anyone. Maybe you smile to yourself in the dark after everyone else is asleep. Maybe your celebrations look like quiet relief instead of joy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being gentle. But when privacy becomes the only way you allow joy, it's no longer a preference, it's a shield. You raise your standards every time you reach them. This is one of the clearest markers. You achieve something you once deeply wanted, but by the time you get there, it no longer feels worthy of celebration. Your brain shifts the goalpost. Okay, but the real success would be this. Yes, I did that, but it wasn't good enough. I'll celebrate when I reach the next level. You're always one step away from permission, but permission never arrives. Joy feels dangerous because you never learned it was safe. This is the quiet truth of people who don't celebrate themselves. Hope feels like vulnerability. Joy feels like exposure. Pride feels like temptation. You distrust good things because nobody showed you how to hold them. But hear this. What saved you then? Staying small, blending in, staying quiet, imprisons you now. And now, your life isn't asking you to hide. It's asking you to come home to yourself. So where did all this begin? Patterns like these rarely come from a single memory. They come from atmospheres, the emotional climates you grew up inside. Maybe you lived in a home where achievement wasn't acknowledged, where your effort went unnoticed, uncelebrated, unreflected. Not because people didn't care, but because they, too, were carrying their own uncelebrated lives. Or maybe celebration was dangerous because success created comparison, jealousy, or conflict you learned to avoid. So you learned something essential. It's safer not to shine. Some of you grew up being the responsible one, the emotional anchor, the peacekeeper, the one who held everything together. Celebrating yourself felt selfish, unnecessary, indulgent. Some of you learned perfectionism as a shield, because the only time you received praise was when you exceeded impossible standards. So anything less felt undeserving of acknowledgement. Some of you learned invisibility, blending into the background to stay out of the line of fire. Joy was too loud, too risky, too exposed. And for many of you, your childhood victories simply didn't have witnesses. No one was there. No one saw the effort. No one said, "You did it. I'm proud of you." Silence became the soundtrack of your successes. And when that happens long enough, the child inside you makes a quiet decision. If no one celebrates me, maybe it means I don't deserve it. But that child was wrong. They weren't undeserving. They were unseen. And now, that child is waiting for the adult version of you to come back, kneel down, and say, "You did so much alone. You deserved celebration then, and you deserve it now." Healing begins in the smallest movements, the quiet rewiring of a brain that once learned joy meant danger. Neuroscience shows that your brain's ability to form new pathways is strongest when emotional learning meets repetition and safety. This means every time you choose to acknowledge yourself, even for a second, you're reteaching your nervous system a new truth. Joy is safe now. Visibility is safe now. Celebrating myself is allowed. But healing from a lifetime of self-erasure doesn't come from forcing yourself into loudness. It comes from gentle, deliberate acts of recognition. So here are the pathways, not prescriptions, not demands, but invitations. Start with micro-celebrations. When big celebrations feel overwhelming, start with the smallest ones. You finish a task you've been avoiding. You rest when you need to. You say no when it's hard. You breathe through a difficult moment. Instead of brushing it off, pause. Put your hand over your chest. Feel the warmth. Let your body register the moment. Say quietly, "I did that." This is how your nervous system learns. Speak to your inner child directly. Ask that child, the one who learned to disappear, a simple question. What did you never receive that you still need? You may be surprised by the answer, but whatever it is, give it freely. Say, "You deserved celebration then, and I'm here to give it now." Inner child dialogue isn't fantasy. It's emotional It's giving your brain what it never had the chance to encode. Create a private ritual for your victories. It doesn't have to be big. Light a candle. Write a sentence in a journal. Save a moment in a notes app. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, "I'm proud of you." These private rituals become neural anchors, signals to your brain that something meaningful just occurred. And yes, you are allowed to celebrate quietly. Quiet joy is still joy. Quiet pride is still pride. Let trustworthy people witness you. This one is difficult, but healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when someone looks at you and says, "I see your effort. I see your growth. I'm proud of you." You don't need a crowd, just one safe person. Sharing your victories with them teaches your nervous system that visibility can be gentle, not dangerous. Redefine celebration so it fits you. Some people imagine confetti, noise, announcements, but celebration is not volume. Celebration is acknowledgement. It can be a quiet walk, a favorite drink, a slow morning, a moment of stillness, a hand over your heart, a whispered sentence of truth. Make celebration something your nervous system can tolerate, something that meets you where you are, not where others expect you to be. Challenge the old scripts. When your mind says, "It doesn't matter, it's not enough, anyone could have done it," gently interrupt. Ask yourself, would I say this to a child trying their best? If the answer is no, then you know the voice you're hearing isn't truth. It's history, and you're allowed to choose a different one now. Name your victories, even the invisible ones. You survived days you thought would break you. You kept going when your heart was tired. You carried responsibilities too heavy for your age. You rebuilt yourself quietly, patiently, privately. Those victories count. They always counted. They are worthy of recognition. You don't celebrate only the outcomes. You celebrate the effort. You celebrate the courage. You celebrate the moments no one else saw. Recommended books for this inner journey. Here are 2 gentle companions for the road ahead. No advertisements, just honest recommendations. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, a compassionate guide to letting yourself be seen, worthy, enough. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson, a grounded exploration of the survival patterns formed in childhood and how to heal them. Use them not as rules, but as mirrors. Let that child come home. At the center of all this healing is a simple act. Let the child who never felt celebrated finally come home. Hold them with the tenderness they were denied. Honor the hopes they carried alone. Recognize the strength they never received credit for. Say to them with the full weight of truth, you mattered then, you matter now, and I will celebrate every step you take. Because healing isn't a single moment, it's a relationship with yourself, a new one, a softer one, a kinder one, and it begins with one brave recognition. You deserve to be celebrated, not for being perfect, but for being here. So here you are. You've spent your whole life shrinking yourself, so no one could misunderstand your joy. You learned to be quiet so others could be comfortable. You learned to dim your light so you wouldn't draw unwanted attention. But listen closely. You were never meant to disappear. This world needed your presence, your voice, your quiet courage, your resilience, your tenderness, and your celebration, whatever shape it takes, is not arrogance. It is acknowledgement. It is reclamation. It is the return of a self you were once forced to abandon. You never had a childhood where your victories were celebrated, but you still have a future where you can learn to celebrate yourself. So take the smallest step, honor one moment today. Say one gentle truth to yourself. Let one spark of pride rise in your chest. Not because the world needs to see it, but because you do. And when you're ready, let yourself shine, even just a little. You've earned it. If this spoke to your soul, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to know they weren't the only one who grew up uncelebrated. You're not alone anymore.